Welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. I'm Steve Gibson.
I'm Ben Matlock.
And we're back. We survived another week of the apocalypse. That's good.
Running out of beans today. So. There's not much to update.
No.
Kind of what I thought would happen after the quarantine is really hitting all the bullet points I thought, where at first everybody's like kind of into it because it's kind of a novelty, like, oh, we all get to stay home. Yeah. And now this week you can tell like it's already taking its toll, and people online are arguing about the dumbest shit. Like,
yeah, and we're only on week 2, and if it goes the way that it should go, we've got at least like 2 months. So
in a couple of months, like, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches will be controversial on social media. Anyway, so last week I teased something that I couldn't deliver on, because you brought kind of a game, a little bit of a quiz to the show, and I did want to get you back for that, but that was just one of the many moments of a drunk Ben promising something and eventually realizing that took a lot of work and couldn't deliver. What happened is Doom Eternal came out, and I just wanted to play Doom.
The thing is, we went through that period where we were like writing like creepypastas and stuff for fiction, basically, for the show, which was fun. But it turns out that's actually even more work than covering like existing stuff. And that falls closer into that category, yeah.
That was a real slap in the face, because you tell yourself every day, like, you know, if I really applied myself, I bet I could do this, and I could pursue this, and, like, man, my writing would really take off. And then you were just like, you realize, like, oh, I'm not that creative. Like, I went 1 week, and then I couldn't come up with an idea.
That's the thing, and everybody right now is loving to point out, it's like, oh, Shakespeare wrote King Lear while in quarantine. It's like, yeah, Shakespeare didn't have, like, Twitter and video games and TV and Netflix to distract him.
And half that shit isn't even real English. So, like...
Right.
How good of a writer was he? If you have to, like, read the footnotes on every page.
He was in a fever dream the whole time. That's the thing. He just had a pen in his hand, but...
I bet back then, like, people there were like, what the fuck is he talking about in this play?
Yes. You know, our English teachers back in high school were like, oh, that's Old English. And old English people are like, no, it's not.
We never talked like that.
Saying. Yeah.
No, I'm giving a shit. I love Shakespeare, and there is like a rhythm to the language that's really interesting. But anywho, today we're going to be reading something that's definitely not Shakespeare. I did grab a creepypasta for this week. But I wanted to dive into kind of a subgenre of creepypastas we haven't really done yet. And it's about the dark web. And there's a lot of online horror stories about the dark web and the deep web, and it's always, you know, a lot of them just kind of wallow in that same sort of like, I found this disturbing website where they were killing people for fun, and it's, you know. Yeah,
like there's been a couple of movies that kind of sound like that genre, where it's like, I forget what the one was called, where they all like get in on part of this app that's like a game, and the dares, it's all live streamed, and they get more and more.
Right.
Like, yeah.
And, you know, and this one is probably up that alley. I don't know. I only read half of it and then decided yes.
I hope the second half it turns into like a Sonic the Hedgehog erotic fan fiction, and you're just like, well,
but in for a penny, in for a pound. We're going to finish it, Steve. This is called Journey to the Dark Web. It's by a user named He-Man4694. And the E is a 3 in it. So,
man, so there must be a ton of He-Man online. Yeah.
And somebody's like, wow, they even spelled it with a 3? Fuck.
Right. I'd like to think that they tried He-Man with a 30001
and tried all the numbers. 02. All right. To begin, I think I should explain to some readers the difference between the deep web and the dark web, which is a great way to start a story. Is like, let me break it down for you. The deep
the
web
dictionary
was
define. Oh,
yeah, the deep web was a place that was accessible online by the use of special web browsers such as Tor that contain less than legal things such as drugs, human trafficking, and hitmen for hire. The dark web was pretty much everything that was no longer available by conventional means, such as military websites and other sites that have not been incorporated into the current internet architecture. With that in mind, I'd like to convey to you all my story of my accidental journey into the unknown space known as the dark web.
Isn't that funny how all of these things have, like, the wife comes down, what are you looking at there? Well, it was accidental journey.
Someone hacked my computer and put all this clown porn on it. I'm a computer technician by profession. I worked for a company that was contracted by local businesses and private consumers to set up internet connections, install software, and repair any sort of computer problems they come up with. So naturally, I got all the crazy stories and problems that these people could come up with. I swear some of these people just don't know how to work a computer, even in this day and age. Anyway,
sure.
Well, which I feel like this is like TV's version of a computer technician dialogue here.
Right.
Anyway, one day I got a call from a local business complaining that their internet was acting up and that they must have a virus. So I shook my head, thinking that someone must have unplugged a network cable or downloaded a Trojan horse accidentally, got up and drove over to the business to address the problem. As soon as I arrived, the man who called me immediately spotted me and started going on and on about hackers and how much he hated Microsoft Windows and how many viruses it created and all that nonsense that I usually received when addressing business problems. There's nothing wrong with hating Microsoft Windows, to be fair.
I was going to say, and that does kind of describe my dad to a T when it comes to computers. Like, anytime, like, it's like, oh, you have to right-click and go to print to get that to print, and God knows what he actually does because you're on the phone. And then he's like, it hackers and fucking.
I often mutter to myself, just staring at the wall about hackers for days on end. He led me to his computer, and I pulled out my laptop and sat down in front of it and began to work. He told me good luck and walked away to go do whatever it was he did in his downtime. I opened up the browser he used, and it opened to About Blank. It didn't even have a homepage, I thought. So I tried connecting to Google.com. This is what made me choose the story, the fact that he has to call it Google.com.
You know what's funny there is I do set at work, my browser's homepage is About Blank, because when you open the app, it opens faster. You're not loading some bullshit website that you need. Even though anymore they all cache them anyway, but still. And then I was having an IT problem a while ago, back when our company updated a bunch of shit and it broke everything, of course. And so they shadowed in to do it, and he opened my browser. He's like, oh, About Blank, I've never seen it open to that. And I was like, I set it to that. And he's like, oh.
You broke it.
Yeah.
So I tried connecting to Google.com, and I got 404 error. Well, I know that Google.com definitely existed, so there was a problem with his internet connection.
Great deduction there, IT.
That would be a great setup for a story, though. A guy convinced that Google was real, but it wasn't. Like, he ended up imagining it all. I opened his network and sharing center to see if I could use the built-in troubleshooter to diagnose the problem, but I gave myself a well-deserved facepalm when I saw that he wasn't connected to any network at all. So I searched for networks and found a few wireless connections for him to connect to. They're all WEP encrypted, and I was almost positive that he didn't know the key, so I broke out my laptop and ran a WEP cracking tool to get his computer up and running again.
Because that's what IT does instead
of... let me pull out my fucking feature hacks. As I was waiting for my tool to find the WEP key, another network suddenly showed up on my computer, this one unprotected with an SSID consisting of a random hexadecimal string. Now, I was extremely bored waiting for this guy to return, so I decided to connect to it and take a little look around to see where it was coming from. I connected without problems and opened up my toolkit of cracking tools to see if I could find a source for this connection.
This was written by like probably a 56 to 65-year-old like housewife that's never used a computer.
I took off my
it could be
hacking tool belt.
House
settled
dad.
in for a good night's sleep.
Yeah, just gender's, I guess, not important, but I'm just picturing like my mom now instead of my dad, because she's more creative, and my cracking tools.
Yeah. To be fair, this is the exact same type of jargon I would be using.
Well,
because all I know about like hacking and shit is like all from like movies like Swordfish, which were just like bullshit. And like 15 monitors and 3 keyboards, and we're in the bank now. As I was having my fun hacking away at this unprotected network, I just imagine him hitting his keyboard with a hatchet. Like, just like gleefully, like, I'm in the network. As I was hacking away at this unprotected network, my computer froze up, albeit only for a second or two, but this didn't happen much, and it caught me by surprise. I shrugged it off as the poor internet speed there and kept on going. A couple minutes later, however, it happened again, and a few minutes after that, once again, each time getting longer and longer. Weird, I thought to myself. What's with this network? It was then that things started getting really interesting. After the long string of pauses, my screen flickered a little bit, and out of nowhere, my browser opened by itself. Now, I was worried that I had somehow infected my computer with some kind of malware by connecting to this network, and I proceeded to close the browser and began to disconnect from the network before anything worse could happen. But I couldn't disconnect. No matter how many times I clicked the little disconnect button, my computer didn't respond, despite everything else on my screen running fine. Fuck, I thought to myself, this is going to be a long day. And just as I was about to hit the power button on my laptop to perform a hard reset, my browser opened again, this time with a little chat box open. Hello. I stared at the screen for a couple seconds, not quite sure what was going on. I want to talk to you. Now, I had heard about those AI programs, these programmed responses to simulate conversations with people, and I was not impressed. This was one nasty virus. You need to leave this network now. This is your last warning.
But it's not letting him. He was trying to.
He was trying to shut down his computer. Yeah. I totally missed that. Like, you're keeping him here. Maybe an automated security program designed to keep hackers out? I'll have to admit, I was impressed with this. I had never seen anything like this before.
I like that he's gone from not impressed by the chatbot to impressed by the chatbot with like
one
line of dialogue. Yeah.
Well, if this is a virus, then it's just a little piece of shit virus. But if this is an automated security program, that's really impressive programming. I'm telling you one last time, leave now. I don't know what made me do it, but I responded to the program, or what? This is in every, like, dark web creepypasta story. There's a point where the fucking, like, dark web is like, get out of here. And the protagonist is always like, make me. And there wouldn't be a story if you just listened.
Yeah.
So the moral here, if we lose sight of it by the end, if you're ever in a chat room and somebody says, get out, just get out. Don't, like, try to macho them. The next response scared me more than anything in this world ever had. The program began listing information about me, my name, address, telephone number, credit card information, my parents' names, their address. My heart sank in my chest and all the color immediately left my face. I couldn't move. I just sat there, paralyzed with fear. But what came next was even worse.
Fucking Windows.
God damn, it's still Vista. Don't look at me like that. My webcam was on. You really shouldn't stare, He-Man 4694. You might see something you regret. Suddenly, the most horrifying images you could ever imagine flashed on my screen. Images of disemboweled humans, human sacrifice, detached limbs, cannibals eating people, video clips of mass suicides, firing lines. My heart was racing, my body was shaking in utter fear of the images I was being shown. They're seared into my brain. Those were things that no one should ever see. I mustered the strength I had left and hit the power button on my computer and slammed it shut. I ran to the bathroom and threw up a couple times. I was drenched in sweat. I could barely compose myself. So there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, but see, And it's an intense scene, and I get it, and it's supposed to be, but I am an asshole, and all I can picture are all the other people in this office building, like, looking at this guy like, what the fuck's wrong with Todd?
Yeah.
Like,
that always happens in movies where people, like, dramatically, like, slam their laptop shut and shit when something dramatic's going on. But, like, you know, it won't turn off harder than, like, hitting the power button.
I know, and that would just make me assume that it's not, like, something bad like this. It's that he, like, opened up his laptop and started to work and realized he had, like, his Pornhub tab still up and accidentally tabbed to it. You know, he's just that kind of thing.
Well, you gotta, if that's the case, you don't slam it shut. You slam it gently, because you break your laptop, you'll never get back there.
That's true, and it'd be very embarrassing to have to, like, send it to the Geek Squad and have...
And the first thing that pops open is like, whoops.
Which I guarantee they get that all the time.
Yeah, but you know what? A place that's called Geek Squad or whatever, they shouldn't fucking judge you, all right?
Which reminds me, I have a very good story, very in this vein, but you'll have to remind me off air, because I can't really tell it on air.
Okay. But maybe the reason he slammed it shut was because the thing was using his webcam against him.
Well, yeah.
And the thing was just, like, casually, like, and then I ran to the bathroom to throw up a couple times. Like, just, they always have to add that, like, and then I shit myself a little.
Nearly shit myself. He fucked up.
I nearly shit myself, and the smell from that made me throw up a couple times.
Exactly.
It took me about 20 minutes to go back to my computer, and even then I had a hard time getting near it. I looked over at my client's computer, and it was connected to the wireless network I was cracking earlier. It was working fine now. Just then, my client returned and thanked me for fixing his internet. I didn't say anything. I just grabbed my laptop and left. Going down the elevator with my laptop under my shoulder was terrible. I just wanted to leave that place and get my laptop replaced as soon as I could. 5th floor, 4th floor, come on. 3rd floor, 2nd floor, come on, goddammit. He's like getting mad at the elevator though, like I had nothing to do.
But that holds true to movies too. How many times have you seen that? And they'll start like hitting the button more times. It's like, when...
But if you're in that much of a rush, take the stairs, bitch. Like, don't...
Yeah, be like, well, but no, that's physical exertion.
Yeah. God damn it. Ping. Ground floor. Open up. Come on. And just as the doors opened from behind me, a whisper. You really shouldn't stare, He-Man 4694. I immediately left the office building and drove back to my office. I promptly gave my laptop to my boss, telling him that it had become non-functional and that I required a replacement. I told him that someone accidentally spilled coffee on it during my last trip and that it short-circuited. In reality, I made a pit stop. You notice that
you're lying the second he opens the fucking laptop. It's like, hey, there's no coffee.
He thought about that. In reality, I made a pit stop on my way back to the hardware store and bought the most powerful magnet I could find and ran it over the hard drive several times. I wasn't risking that thing ever turning on again.
I hope you bought some coffee, too, to spill on it. Otherwise, like I said, your story still falls apart unless it's, like, sticky, like, latte smelling.
I always get a grande magnet from Starbucks every day. So after a few short minutes of the keep better track of your shit speech, he took the laptop and told me that I would get my replacement tomorrow. It was probably the most satisfying thing I could ever hear. For a few days, everything was back to normal. No more AI chat boxes, no more funky, unprotected internet connections, no more disturbing images popping up on my screen. I was safe until the nightmares started. I remember the first one I had very vividly, and I shudder when I think about it, but I'll tell you nevertheless. It began with me walking through a large city. I remember seeing large buildings and people walking up and down the streets on their way to work or shopping, whatever it is city people do. You're a technician. Like, why are you, what are these city folk up to? Like, as I was walking, I found myself in front of a very large building, much taller than the rest, and for some reason I wanted to go inside and take a look. So I walked through the front doors and took a look around. It was a fairly normal office building, people moving and about, talking on their cell phones and whatnot, minding their own business. I realized that there really wasn't much to see here, so I turned around to leave, but something was wrong. The doors to the building were gone. I walked forward thinking that they were some new type of door that blended into the wall or something, but nothing was there. I found myself very confused.
I love his thoughts. Like, well, maybe it's one of them newfangled doors that look like walls.
What I'm seeing can't possibly be right. These are definitely a door. Oh, I walked into a wall. So I turned back around again to maybe ask the receptionist where the exit was, but she was gone too. Everyone was gone. The lobby was empty, no sounds, no people, no furniture, just an empty white room. Now I was scared. I began to panic and pace around the room, looking for any way, but there was nothing, nowhere to go. So I began to run at the walls, trying to break them down, but all my attempts were futile.
I mean,
I would probably do it
kudos
too.
for trying. So I wouldn't. I'd be like, I'm trapped. That's cool.
I'd be like, well, it's time to break this wall down with a roundhouse kick. I've been grooming my body for this moment.
See, I would. It's not fair for me. It's I do that lucid dreaming. If you're familiar with that, like not every time, but in a dream like that, I love nightmares because they're like just really good action movies. Because
that's one of the few times you feel something.
Yes. But I like almost always anyway, at some point in the dream, I realize it's a dream. And once you hit that point, if you ever have lucid dreams or you do it, like I said, it's very common for me. You can start to control what's actually happening in the dream, which makes them way the hell less scary.
Yeah.
So it just turns it into like the world's greatest like virtual reality game. But anyway, yeah.
Well, that is the next VR game, is trapped in a white room kicking a wall. After about 4 or 5 bum rushes against the walls, I sat down, out of breath, looking down at the floor. It felt like I was there for hours, just staring at the ground, when suddenly I heard a small whisper. I looked up to see a black silhouette of a man facing me. He stuck out his hand and whispered ever so slightly, "Trying to leave?" For some reason, I trusted this figure. Don't ask me why. It was some dream logic. But I felt like this figure was going to show me the way out somehow, so I took his hand and got up and said, "Yes, can you show me the way?" "Of course, follow closely." He turned around and began to hover away from me, so I followed. I don't know how, but he began to create hallways and staircases out of the room I was trapped in, leading me all sorts of ways as if through a giant labyrinth.
It sounds like it's turning into Portal.
Yeah, or
that man's GLaDOS. Don't trust him.
It's very Control, like that game. Just shit moving around in white rooms and me not having much fun. We climbed up and up and up until we finally reached a hallway that had a door at the end. It was then that he stopped moving and turned back toward me. I could make out a faint smile on his face as he pointed toward the door. "Is this the exit?" "It is." I was so happy to finally get out of this place, so I grabbed the door handle and began to turn it as he placed his hand on my shoulder. I turned to look at him, and his words made my heart race to this day. "But remember, He-Man, you shouldn't ever stare." My eyes widened as his face began to morph into that of a horrible horned creature. His teeth became like razors, and his mouth was filled with fire. I threw him off of me and opened the door only to find my worst fears behind it. Dead people were hanging from the ceiling, and blood covered the room like wallpaper. I screamed, but nothing came out. I turned away from the room and ran as fast as I could back the way I came, but it was not long before I realized that I was hopelessly lost in this labyrinth that the demon had led me through. I ran and ran, but couldn't find the way out. There was no way out. I was trapped in this nightmare. I started hurling myself at the walls, which didn't work the first time. I don't know.
Yeah, I love it. That's his first go-to.
I got one exit strategy here. If you beat that, I'm fucked. I started hurling myself at the walls in an attempt to leave this evil place, but nothing was working. I thought I was going to die here, and that was when I awoke. I was drenched in sweat, my heart was racing, and my breathing was heavy. I looked around, and it took me a couple minutes to realize that this was just a nightmare. Horrible, horrible nightmare. I got up out of my bed and walked over to my bathroom to wash myself of all the sweat that I had just doused myself in. As I washed my face, I noticed something in the mirror, a small light coming from my room. I turned around and I saw it, sitting at the foot of my bed, my personal computer. When people say my personal computer still, it's like you were saying, it's very much like our parents.
Yeah, because like, what's the alternative? It's like, the communal computer sitting at the foot of my...
The library desktop was at the foot of my bed. I slowly walked over to examine it, thinking I had accidentally left it on before going to bed, which I rarely do. So I bent down and picked it up. Command prompt was open, but it was blank. No prompt or anything, just that little black box with the white cursor flashing at me. It was then that I remembered that I didn't even use my computer before going to bed. In fact, I had left it in the kitchen. My webcam light turned on. Command prompt began to type. "What's the matter, He-Man? Bad dream?" Now, immediately after seeing what had appeared on my screen, I did what anyone else would have done. I removed the battery from my computer, threw it into a safe that I kept in my bedroom, and locked it tight.
I was going to say striptease, but...
I did whatever I said. Yeah, it was pretty rough. What are you wearing? Threw it into the safe that I kept into my bedroom and locked it tight. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I just sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor, paralyzed with fear. This was no ordinary nightmare. This was real. Well, the nightmare was, a nightmare, but, Yeah. For the next few days, I had the same nightmare every night, each time as traumatizing as the first, and worst of all, each time after waking up, I could hear my laptop fan inside the safe. I knew what it was doing, but I never looked. I didn't want to see that message again. I didn't want to scar myself even further. Which is like, if it keeps happening, you're kind of in anyway. So,
yeah.
Like, why not?
And frankly, I would be a little curious how the fan's running if you threw the battery away. So, like, even if you're afraid it's some supernatural thing, like, I would have to take it out and look, like...
And to, like, the earlier point you pointed out, like, the thing told him to leave the network, which he was trying to do, and then he left the network, and this thing's still fucking with him.
Yeah, it's basically the dark web or deep web, whichever, I forget which one they're supposed to be, because his definition at the beginning seemed to have very little to do with the rest of the story.
I think he just wanted to prove that he knew there was a difference.
And I bet that the definition matches Wikipedia.com. But anyway, it's like the dark web equivalent to stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself.
Right. And, that actually sounds right. Like, psychopaths totally do shit like that. After 3 nights of experiencing that terrible nightmare, I stopped sleeping. I couldn't see those horrible images anymore. I couldn't face that demon anymore. It was too much for me. I kept myself up with caffeine and vitamin B. My motor functions declined and my cognitive ability deteriorated after the second consecutive night. I was so weak, so tired, so afraid. So this was like from Nightmare on Elm Street to like anything where it's like your sleep was fucking with you. Like, people get this great idea of like, well, I'll just stop sleeping. How about this then? I'll just kill myself.
Right.
Like, the slowest way possible.
You're trying to strangle me? Well, I'll just quit breathing. Wait.
Right. On my 3rd day of self-induced insomnia, my boss walked over to my desk and gave it to me straight. "You look like dried up dog shit, man. Go home. Get some sleep." If my boss told me that, I would...
I also love that, it does take a huge physical toll on you if you don't sleep. And I like that his boss is nice enough to send him home, but not ask what's wrong. Just be like, man, something's obviously really not right here. Get out of here. I don't want to be part of it.
I know at my job, they would think a lot of things before they think like, oh, he's just not sleeping that much. They'd be like, well, does he have a drug problem we didn't know about? When's the last time we tested him?
Like, hey, go home and get some sleep. But first, piss in this cup for us. No reason, just
a swab, please. I looked up at him. I wanted to tell him so badly, but I know if I did, he would just tell me to get my shit together and come back tomorrow. This is a real father figure boss here. Is like, quit being a bitch. That demon messes with you, you kick his ass. So I nodded my head in agreement, picked up my stuff, and walked out. As I was driving home, I turned on the radio to help keep me awake. I had not slept in almost 60 hours, so keep in mind this guy's behind the wheel.
Yeah, good place to be.
But instead of my favorite tunes, all that came out of my car speakers was static. Just a bunch of white noise. I started changing channels, but everything was the same, static. So I turned it off and drove home in silence. As I pulled into my driveway, I noticed through my front window that there was a flickering light coming from inside my house. It was my TV. I left the damn thing on before leaving to work. I wasn't surprised, though.
I like that with everything going on, he's still mad about leaving a TV on. Like,
power ain't cheap, man. I left the damn thing on before leaving to work. I wasn't surprised, though. Not sleeping for 2 consecutive nights was definitely taking a toll on me. I put the car in park and started to pull the keys out when my radio turned on again. More static. Was I hallucinating? Christ, I'm losing it. No, you're not. I almost shit my pants. Did that come from the radio? Either I've gone nuts or that was extremely coincidental.
Wait. Did he literally write, I almost shit my pants?
He did.
Okay.
Yeah. So take a drink, everyone, if you're doing our creepypasta drinking game. Actually, you have to slam the bottle.
Like those party favor thing, like the whistle things, like a woo-doo or whatever, and we'll like throw confetti every time.
You are the 100,000th use of almost shitting your pants in a creepypasta. Congratulations, He-Man.
My next creepypasta is literally going to be about nearly shitting your pants. Like there's no supernatural thing involved. It's like you're stuck in class or something, and you're afraid you're about to shit your pants in front of the whole class, but you have to give
that is the only fear related to shitting my pants, though, like that I've ever felt in my life. It's not like I've never been so scared I've almost shit my pants.
Right, it's and I almost stepped on a fucking snake the other day, and it didn't make me like not even a toot. I mean, I'm telling you, like everything tight back there.
No, not even. But, don't brag, okay? Just because you have perfect control. I'm still here, you know. Holy fuck! This time I was sure that deep static voice just came out of the speakers of my car. I looked at my radio to see what station it was tuned to, but the screen was just a bunch of random symbols and letters that didn't make any sense. I started to panic. I immediately turned the car off and almost ran into my house. No, they couldn't follow me everywhere. I locked my computer in my safe.
Wait. I got stuck on that line and I almost ran into my house after all the like jumping into walls and streams. Like I'm picturing literally almost like ran into the side of his house. Like
I almost broke down the wall of my house trying to get in.
It's like the Looney Tune. There's like the Roadrunner shape or whatever, or the coyote shape. Yeah,
that's that would be a great image for a dark web story. It's just No, they couldn't follow me everywhere. I locked my computer in my safe. This couldn't be happening to me. I whipped around to look at my television, which I had forgotten was still on. I swear I wish that the goddamn Teletubbies were on. In fact, I wish there was anything on, but there wasn't. It was just static. I don't know why he's throwing the Teletubbies under the bus. They do what they do. He's like, I would even take the Teletubbies right now.
And frankly, I get that. It's like, oh no, it's static and the radio is static and that's it. I think if this stuff was going on, the Teletubbies would be the most terrifying thing I could like just have pop up onto my TV.
Well, when I first read that line, I thought he was saying that the Teletubbies were on. And I was like, well, that makes perfect sense. You haven't slept in 60 hours.
Right.
You're just a miserable wreck. I just surf shit on the TV too. No sound, no signal, just static. Boom! I almost fell over backward in fear. The television sound came in with a huge bang, and the static was very audible. White noise filled the room. I could feel my heart pounding as my hands began to shake. No. Please, no. The static began to get louder and louder until I couldn't even hear myself think. I covered my ears and began shouting to myself, Stop it now, please! And it stopped. I looked up slowly at my television. Nothing. Black screen. It was off. I stood up slowly, still shaking from what had just happened. I walked slowly toward my television, fearing that it may have turned on again and blow my eardrums out. I got right up next to the screen, reached behind my TV, and unplugged the power cord. I stared at it for a couple seconds, hoping I had stopped them from gaining access. I backed away slowly, breathing even more evenly now. I stopped it, and that's when I saw that face on my television screen, that black silhouette from my dreams. It was here. It was real. He smiled at me with the most evil smile you could possibly imagine, and I couldn't look away. I was too afraid to move. And suddenly he began to speak in the most frightening voice imaginable. It was deep and booming, somewhat distorted, as if he was speaking through a voice masker. It sounded like 10 voices in one, all as evil as the other. "Do you fear me, He-Man?" I couldn't move. "I said, do you fear me?" My body was shaking uncontrollably. This would be great. You're this scared, but then you say no. Be like, no, you're a bitch.
Not particularly, no.
No, you're just a bully, and my dad says don't be afraid of bullies. "Do you know these people?" This guy's like playing bad cop. Or something. Have you ever seen them? The next images I saw were the most traumatizing images in my life. I saw pictures of my family, my friends, people I had met throughout my life. He had them. This couldn't have been happening. "I told you not to stare." Which he didn't. He tried to leave. Yeah, like, fuck you, dude. You made it happen. And probably out of sheer adrenaline, I snapped out of my paralysis and picked up a small glass bottle sitting on the table next to me and hurled it as hard as I could at the TV. Sparks went everywhere. Shattered glass covered the floor. I looked up at the TV and it was broken. Fuck. A brand new TV. No. I looked up at the TV and it was broken. The screen had cracked and it was no longer functioning. The demon was gone. I mustered what strength I had left and walked up to my room. I was so tired. I fell to my knees and began to cry when suddenly I heard it, my laptop fan. I slowly raised my head and there it was, sitting on the edge of my bed. Command prompt open, webcam on. The screen read, "That wasn't very nice, He-Man." I screamed as loud as I could, "Leave me the fuck alone!" And picked up my laptop and threw it out the window as hard as I could. This was going to end today. I walked over to the window I had thrown my computer out of to make sure that it was shattered, and I wanted nothing to be left of it, but as I looked out the window, I didn't see any broken laptop. So I was like, I just imagine like some shitty neighbors like, "Fucking free laptop."
I like to think it hit him in the head first, so like he was walking down the sidewalk, it's like, "What the fuck? All right, a laptop."
I hit my nosy neighbor straight in the temple with this laptop. But I didn't see any broken laptop. I saw him looking up at me, smiling. I backed away slowly from the window. I couldn't think. I couldn't comprehend anything at the moment. He was real. He was here. I backed up into my room, slammed the door shut, and sat on the floor trying to formulate some kind of plan to escape this thing. Or more importantly, how to rid myself of this demon forever. Bang, bang, bang. I immediately stood upright. He was knocking at my front door, which is like... He's a demon. Why is he, like, knocking?
Can you help me out here, bud? I accidentally knocked myself out. Because he was already in there once.
Yeah, he's like, but I'm just actually a laptop, so it's actually kind of hard for me to get in. I control every other fucking part of your life but the fucking mechanics of a doorknob. Fuck.
I'm sorry, I expected you to have one of those Ring doorbell things that could unlock the door with Bluetooth. I don't know.
Bang, bang, bang. Again I heard it. He wanted in. I heard him knocking over and over again, incessant pounding on my front door, always in threes. I began thinking frantically, what was I going to do? Should I stay in here? Should I get a weapon? Should I call the police? I didn't know, and the knocking continued. I was pacing my room, desperately trying to think of what to do. My heart was racing, my body purely running on adrenaline at this point. And suddenly, as if perfectly on cue, the knocking stopped. I stopped pacing. Was he gone?
Perfectly on cue for what? That implies that it like coincided with something else.
When almost shitting yourself turned into shitting yourself.
I
right on cue.
Come into somebody's home
now,
at that point.
He left just in time for you to just be some asshole who shit himself. So now there's no explanation. I stopped pacing. Was he gone? Did he just decide to leave? I had to be sure. I slowly opened my door and looked around. Nothing. I moved out of my room and toward the stairs and peeked down. Still nothing. I slowly moved down the stairs and saw my broken TV and the shattered glass on the floor. Was it over? As I made my way into the living room, I began to feel cold, very cold. I looked around to see if I could find my thermostat when something else caught my eye. My front door, it was wide open. I swear I almost had a heart attack. Was he inside? I had no way of knowing, but the first thing that came to mind was that I had to close that door in case he wasn't. Because
that could happen. You're knocking and knocking and knocking, and then the door busts open, and you're like, "Oh shit! Well, I don't want to just invite myself in."
Maybe he gave up, and then cartoonishly the door opened as soon as he walked away. So I quickly moved to the door and slammed it shut. It wasn't cold anymore. I slumped down, back against my front door. I was unbearably tired. I needed to sleep. More than anything in this world, I just needed to sleep. My eyes began to close. My muscles began to relax. My breathing slowed. And right as my eyes shut and the shroud of sleep began to cover me, his face right in front of me, my eyes snapped open to see his face right up against mine. And my dogs are...
He must be there. He's in your house.
Just let them figure this out and we'll continue. And I'll cut this out. He was falling asleep. Yeah. My muscles began to relax, my breathing slowed, and right as my eyes shut and the shroud of sleep began to cover me, his face, right in front of me. My eyes snapped open to see his face right up against mine. He was staring at me, smiling. I had no strength left to do anything about it. He slowly stood up and reached out his hand. He said to me in the evil whisper of his, "Get up. I want to show you something." I shook my head in disagreement. There was no goddamn way that I was following him. He was going to force me.
There's like 8 points in this story where I feel like they could have become friends if he just like he never tried talking to him or asking him what he wants or anything like that. He's just like, "I'm terrified shitless," and then the guy asked me to do something. I'm like, "Fuck no, I'm not doing that."
Yeah, I don't. There's points where they're both kind of assholes, but I feel like this demon didn't really give this friendship a fair shot either. So I shook my head in disagreement. There was no goddamn way that I was following him. He was going to force me to live that nightmare. He was going to finish killing my mind before he was going to destroy my body. I said, "Get up. You have no other choice." All I could do was look at him. I stared into his amorphous face as if looking right through him. "You know what I can do. Now get up." He wasn't going to let me die here. He wasn't going to leave me alone. He wanted me for himself. He was right, and I had no other choice. So I raised my hand up and grabbed his arm. Somehow, as if my legs were moving by themselves, I began to follow him up my staircase. He's going to torture me. We started walking toward my bedroom. The door was shut. As we were in front of my room, he pointed at my door handle, looked at me, and smiled. I knew there was no way out. I had no strength left to run, no strength left to think, no strength left to feel, so I grabbed the handle and opened the door. When I looked inside, expecting to see dead bodies and burning flesh, I saw something that caught me by surprise. It was my laptop. His laptop surrounded by rose petals. It was my laptop, the one I had thrown out the window earlier. It was sitting on my bed. The demon walked into the room, stood at the foot of my bed, looked at me, and said, "Come. You need to use this device." So I walked forward once again, as if
be taken numerous ways as well.
Okay.
But.
Well, you know, I think we all get a good use out of our devices every now and then. So I walked forward once again, as if not by my own will, sat down on my bed and picked up the computer. Nothing was open, just my desktop with the regular icons. Nothing strange. This, now that I think about it, was probably the strangest thing of all. It has been a very long time since I've spoken with a human. I was too tired to respond. I forgot how fun it was to distort your world and watch you break down in fear. Somehow I managed to say, "What do you want from me?" I could ask you the same thing. You were the one who brought me here in the first place. I was so confused, so tired, I just wanted him to kill me. "I'm not going to kill you, He-Man." Something about his username. Like, being used throughout all this is just still really ridiculous. That he picked He-Man.
I know, and now I kind of want to write a whole movie script that there's some line in it's just buried in it. "I'm not going to kill you, He-Man." Like
He-Man and the Masters of the Dark Web. There's no fun in that. I knew what he was saying, and I tried to feel something, but there was no way. I was too depleted, just an empty shell. I'm going to give you two choices, two very important choices. I looked at him with the most lifeless stare. Listen closely. Your first choice is to live the rest of your days with me. I could have great fun torturing you the rest of your life. I had no response. Or you can choose to send me to another, because I would love a change of scenery. All I could do was stare at him. Then, out of nowhere, I found the strength to say, I hate you. Which was just
I would have said, my boss's email is Larry at itconsultants.net.
He's... Toughen him up, please. He smiled as I said this. He leaned down, put his face next to mine, and whispered, Make your choice, human. And suddenly a window opened on my screen. It looked like a sort of VPN client. Some kind of network was being hosted on my computer. For some reason, the SSID was permanently seared into my memory. Then it lists an actual SSID that's a lot of numbers and shit. I don't know why. Like, it's etched into my memory.
It's an elaborate trick to try to get us to log into this VPN so that we can get by demons.
Right.
I'm not falling for that cyber demon.
Well, it's like if the SSID was seared into your head, it would be like, you'd think it would be related to demons or something, but it's literally just like 49204. But I remembered it forever, you know. For a few minutes, nothing happened. I was the only one on the network. Then, out of nowhere, ping! A message box appeared that read, Someone has joined the network. Would you like to welcome them? The demon began to smile. Once again, he said, Make your choice.
Well, it'd be easy because some fucker obviously did that to you. That's why the network popped up, and then they're like, yeah.
I clicked the OK button. A little chat box opened up. I began to type HELLO. Following that night, the demon that had been haunting me left my life. He vanished as soon as I sent that message, along with the computer sitting in my lap. I wanted to feel remorse.
He did put him through all this, and then he steals his laptop? Like,
can I at least keep the cheap piece of shit laptop?
Boss is going to say something smart-ass when he gets back. He's like, yeah, that replacement laptop. Well,
take care of your shit.
I guess this is his personal laptop, because he pointed that out. But,
I wanted to feel remorse for what I had done. Hell, I wanted to feel anything, but all I could do was close my eyes and sleep. When I next awoke, I looked at the clock and discovered that I had slept for 26 hours. It was the first night of sleep I had gotten in 3 days. It had been several years since my experiences with the demon, and I've been using a public computer to write these stories because I was too afraid to own my own again. And it has taken me that long to muster the courage to tell my story to the people of the world, to warn them of the demon that will fuck with you without warning. Like, it's like, what's this going to ward off? Don't be on the computer? Because, like, this dude literally had no chance to get out of it.
I love the pretentiousness of to tell my story to the world, as if, like, anybody would actually, like, he's assuming everybody's reading it like, oh, wow.
If you don't follow my newsletter as a fucking buck-passing technician.
This is my story. Now don't forget to smash like and subscribe.
To warn them of the demon that was likely still out there, torturing people for his own amusement, forcing them to pass him on to more people through their internet connections. Beware, he was out there somewhere, and he gave no mercy. He just gave you a mercy. He gave you a way out.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing is, it's interesting because it's like, oh, he's torturing me. And it's like, but then he flat out said that he wasn't going to kill you. So it's like, oh, well, then the threat is kind of gone.
Then I'm not really afraid of shit. You suck.
You'll never get to listen to the radio again. Only static. It's like, I guess I can deal with that. What? Oh, fuck.
So, that's He-Man's journey to the dark web. I like that he's like, I thought I would feel guilty, but no, I just slept for 26 hours and now I'm good.
Woke up, I was hella hungry because, I hadn't eaten in 26 hours at that point.
To be fair, like when you're that tired and shit, like a good night's sleep can cover for a lot of feelings.
Woke up, took a good dump, ate some leftover Taco Bell, and by the time I was done with that, I honestly forgot about everything until right now. That's why I'm writing it down. I like it,
So,
though.
yeah.
It's a different flavor. Like you said, it's creepypasta, and it's still... I was a little surprised because I assumed it would have less paranormal and more like... Because a lot of the stories that I want to make it sound like, oh, I'm familiar with the genre and stuff, and mostly through movies. And like I said, it's usually more about like shadowy like organization, just people that are like kind of psychopaths or just like the military.
And there's actually some genuinely fucking nerve-wracking stories like that, where it's like the scariest part of that story is the shit, like the plausible shit of like being in a chat room and somebody just posting all of your shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And they're like your
before
address
you realize
stuff.
that they have it, it's out there, and then just like, well, fuck, because...
And then like you stop being afraid of that once you realize that could happen in a Twitch chat room.
Well,
and you're like, okay, well, there's no private information anymore.
I was going to say that's the best defense to something like that is to just be a boring fuck that doesn't own anything like me. It's like, well, haha, here is your address, and you're like, yeah. You want to come over? We can play some. I've got my Raspberry Pi with some NES games on it.
I got a ping pong table in the basement. You want to hang out?
That's what I mean, though. If he, from the get-go, well, it sounds like it wouldn't have worked because the demon just sounds like a confusing asshole because it's like, get out of here, don't look at me, haha. Hey, you, so why are you ignoring me? Don't look at me.
Well, that's what I'm trying to understand is like, you know, when he first happened, like, was the message from somebody else? Well, no, it couldn't have been because he was like, oh, I haven't fucked with a human in a long time. So it had to be the demon.
I assumed like somebody else had like pawned them off on him. Like, it was like that. Again, I know there's horror movies. I'm not like I don't watch horror movies, but like there's enough of them. You get the premise through the trailer, and there was that it follows or whatever. I think that was kind of the premise to that. Like I said, I didn't see it, but
buck passing. It's a common horror plot device.
So you're right.
But the guy was like,
I had kind of assumed that too, but I forgot about that line that I haven't screwed with a human in a while. Unless he was like, maybe that's why it took him so long. He was trying to torture like a dog, and it just wasn't fucking working.
And the dog's typing in the chat, like, leave the server. A woo. Anyway, kind of a longer one, but whatever. It's quarantine time. People aren't doing shit.
Yeah, right.
So we'll do another thing next week, and that's it. That's all I got. Nothing more to say here.
Next week's show will open with me just starting to read off all Ben's personal stuff. Be like,
you know what? Fucking go for it. If you think you can carry the show with my boring ass life. All right. See you next week.
Toodaloo.